Okay, now I'm gonna talk about the main characters. Now, first of all, let's get the main three out, which are Hope Michaelson, Lizzie Saltzman, and her sister Josie Saltzman. Now, Hope was introduced all the way back in the original season 1, and I've largely missed parts of her story arc because I couldn't be asked to watch the later seasons of the originals because season 4 and season 5 are kind of shit in my opinion. There is some good stuff and I know a couple of scenes, but for me personally, the originals peaked at season 3, and after that there wasn't really any challenge or interesting story to tell anymore. But still, the later seasons have nice moments. So I'm fairly new to Daniel Rose Russell as Hope Michaelson. You can also tell that this is recorded on a different day because I'm much more uh, collected than yesterday. Yeah, um, she's fine. She's a headstrong character. She does things her own way. Very often, she has this brash approach and uses violence. Um, as a tribrid, she potentially has access to the abilities of vampires, werewolves, and witches, but mostly you see her using spells. So, and then occasionally she uses her super strength because Hope is a werewolf too. Uh, but you kind of forget that she's a werewolf, and she's really powerful because of how the story is structured. That allows for her to be still in danger, which I think is a good um, decision because Hope in itself is a very OP character if you utilize her differently. But yeah, Hope is so far a fine protagonist, although I have to say that season 1, the first couple of episodes don't really do justice to her introduction because, like I said, Legacies wants to cater to a new audience, but well, you need the extensive knowledge of the previous shows to really understand what's happening in Legacies, and thus I found it way more refreshing in the first couple of episodes of season 2 when you get to know the cast again. Um, and that and those episodes of season 2 were a better introduction for the main series. So they should have or might have, uh, in my opinion, switched the seasons. Um, yeah. Then we have Lizzie Saltzman, who has bipolar disorder, I think. Lizzie is again very headstrong, but she's way more bitchier than Hope. Uh, Lizzie is also very selfish and does very little thinking of what other people want. So large large portion is devised on her character arc of the show. Um, and then we have Josie, whose character arc in the first season appears much more subliminal. That's because uh, Josie is probably the best character. She's kind hearted. There's still a toughness to her, but she's also very insecure, and as much as she kind of hates being in Lizzie's shadow, she also enjoys being and the shadow and being the more introverted uh, person. But yeah, there's some character arc and to her, but like I said, it happens more subliminal. So I was very happy because so far Josie has been my favorite character in the show. That the second season focused a lot more on her struggles and her as a person. Uh, there's also Landon, who's Hope's love interest, and his story is the second part of like the season. It's mainly about Lizzie and Landon, although Landon's story is way more focused on the world events. It has less to do with his character, the and more of who he is. Um, not personality wise, but what kind of magical creature is. Anyway, he's snarky. He's kind of like a cuck. So, but he's also very, very smart. Uh, and that makes a good contrast to his girlfriend, Hope, who deals with problems much more physical, while he's more the thinking type. There's also MG, and I think MG is my favorite vampire so far. Like Josie, he's very kind-hearted and into comics, so he's kind of a nerd and inspiring. You know, he knows he's a vampire, he knows he's a monster, but still tries to do good and inspire other people to be better. And that's a great character. Unfortunately, he's stuck in a really, really complicated love hexagon. Trust me, it's not just a simple love triangle, but he's kind of into Lizzie, and that hinders his story. Then there's Raphael, who's Landon's brother. So Landon is an orphan, and Raphael is also an orphan, and they just grew up together because Raphael is black, but they consider each other's they consider each other brothers and care really much about each other. Now, Raphael is a werewolf, and unfortunately, the show doesn't really know what to do with him. He gets constantly shat on. I mean, anybody who's familiar with the franchise is that the werewolves never really look good. They get unjustly shafted on almost every occasion, which is very different on how the show treats witches or vampires. Yeah, but the show really doesn't know what to do with him. He gets often captured or injured. He kind of likes Lizzie, but he has also feelings for Hope and for Lizzie's sister Josie, but in the end, he goes with none of them. Um, but yeah, he's more in the background oftentimes, and this becomes even more problem in season 2, where they really had no idea what to do with him and just gave him shit. Then there's Caleb. Caleb is another vampire. He's sort of a cool guy with Magneto attitude on vampires. Uh, he feeds secretly on human blood, and he's all around a very funny and talented guy. Um, he's not really one of the main characters, so we get only later uh, all a bit of insight on how he is. But again, he's one of the people who changes through the influence of MG and becomes a better person alongside Lizzie, who goes on various hijacks and is also partially inspired by MG. Okay, then we have Matt Davis again as the main man, Alaric Saltzman. He's the headmaster. Uh, I really like Alaric. I liked him in Vampire Diaries a lot. Uh, and here he is a bit more callous, but he still gets a lot of zingers and kind of a new love interest, which makes me always anxious. Because again, everybody who is familiar with the franchise knows that Alaric has bad luck with women. Um, his first wife left him and became a vampire. His fiancée was also turned into a vampire and then murdered. Uh, Another girlfriend of his just left him. She's, I think, still alive, which is the best decision she could have made to leave his ass and get out of town. And then there is, of course, his main love, Joe, Joe Laughlin, who was engaged to him in season 6 and murdered on her wedding day. Again, that made me really anxious, but luckily they gave this love interest another a character to fall in love with, which I'm so thankful. But yeah, as a protective father figure, he is a bit more callous in his endeavors to protect his own children and the school, and gets his ass handed later on in the season final because he's done some shady shit. That's simply the truth. Uh, to make sure that the magical creatures are protected at his school, but also that humans are protected from them. And this kind of narrative is used twice. Now, Legacies has a main villain. He's called Malevol. He's a golem or whatever. He doesn't do really much. He's more in line of a Power Rangers villain, and that he sends constantly monsters after our heroes in the first season. Uh, and the occasional monsters don't have that much personality either or affect the story much, except for the Necromancer, who's one of the best villains in the show. I mean, one of the best original villains the show has presented so far. He is just so extra. So the Necromancer was once really, really powerful, but then Malevor absorbed him, and the thing is, when you get absorbed by Malevor, the world forgets you. So he comes out and makes his grand entrance, and everybody's like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And he's just so egotistical that he thinks everybody around him is just playing, and he's very, very funny. But also badass in his costume. His personality is a lot of fun to watch, and and also very threatening. And then we have Ryan Clark, uh, who is also connected to Malevol. Uh, he has kind of this daddy complex, but he's very smart and manipulative. His plans are stretched over the series, and he has his own goals that kind of align with Malevol, but he will very much wants to do his own thing. And there's some really, really good scenes. And also the actor who plays Clark has just such a punchable face. And through that, his manipulative behavior and his daddy complex, he's another great villain. Except for Malevol, who's really boring. You get Malevol's motivation later on, why he's doing what he's doing, but he's a golem, with no personality, just nothing. A void, a husk, and the show creators said that Malevol is there for more than one season, so that's why we have him kind of in season 2 also, and maybe he shows up in season 3 again. Um, Now I'm gonna talk about a character that I don't know really where to fit in, because I don't want to fit the character to the main characters or to the villains. This is a mini rant about Penelope. Now, before I started watching Legacies, I saw a lot of edits and fan videos highlighting Josie's and Penelope's relationship and how cute she is and how cute the whole thing is. But I'm saying here, every time Penelope appeared on screen or opened her mouth, I was like, shut up, go away. Honestly, Penelope is presented as kind of a good guy, but first of all, she heard Josie prior to the beginning of the show, which I already consider sinful because Josie is a precious character. And second of all, she's very manipulative and does constantly shit to further her own goals, and that is to get into the pants of Josie. Um, I agree, Lizzie is not the best character, but Penelope straight up bullies her, and there's some really harsh words that she says or actions. And while I agree to some point with Penelope, I just absolutely hate her personality and her methods, and that I have to make clear. I hate the character. I don't hate the actress. Uh, the actress does a really, really good job of bringing this character to life, and all my hate is solely focused on the character and not the actress. I say this and emphasize on this so much because in this day and age, uh, many people are quick to like get on a bandwagon and hate, and say, oh, you're a bad person, how you can hate her, and that's why I make it clear that my hate for the character doesn't transcend to the actress, but just the character. Even though many people will still dislike this. we have a similar character to Penelope in season 2 called Alyssa, and let me tell you, I was so happy when Penelope left nearly to the end of season 1. Alyssa is slightly better. She is stuck up and just as egotistical and bitchy as Lizzie, but in season 2, Lizzie has already made so much progress as a character that you see kind of where she was and how she's now, and you can tell how much she has grown by that point. But Alyssa works way better. Although there's one uncomfortable scene with her. Like, you know, these characters are teenagers and stuff. And from a story-wise perspective, it makes sense what she does. It's a really, really stupid episode. But she's in a swimsuit and jumps into the water and acts like Denise Richards from this old ass movie. What was it called? I think White Girls. Jeez, I'm so old. And it makes me uncomfortable because those characters are supposed to be teenagers, and you're throwing in their Riverdale shit. And I know the actress is probably well over 15 or 16, but in story wise, it made me really uncomfortable seeing that scene. Of course, the actress is quite well to look at. Let me tell you just that. Okay, there are of course a lot more characters introduced. Most of them are just minor characters, and some are more important to the story at some points, but this is just now the character section, and I mainly talked about their characters that I wanted to talk about. And next up is coming the story section, which will be in part 3 tomorrow on Sunday.
Well, the books are full of words that you read, and the show gets me paid.